Okay, there she is. Um, it is such an honor and great pleasure for me to introduce Dr. Moto. That is what we call her, and she doesn't, I don't know whether she remembers that Moto means fire, and she is literally fire in what she believes and what she does. I met her last year. She has already been involved with some of the people in cohort 2. And I just have never had such a compelling story about this workplace wellness and leadership, from anywhere. That is where I had her talk about this whole thing. And she's a medical doctor. So when you connect that with social justice fight, and you really connect that and give your heart to it, something really happens. So I could not wait for this session today. You have a biography. I don't need to go into the details, but she has dedicated her life to this very important issue. And actually, in spite of being a clinical doctor, medical doctor, she is that is there on the side, but that is not what she's doing. What she's doing is what you are going to hear today. And I hadn't had a medical doctor who can combine the two things and who can fight and who can understand the issue in such a way that brings the fight that we all face today. And as we all know, mental illness, burnout, has become an epidemic. It is no longer that small thing that is happening to a few people. And so I'm so glad you could make some time today, Dr. Moto, to speak to these people. I have told you a little bit about them. They are from Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. And we are in your hands the next two hours, and there's no better place to be right now. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Feel one of us. I call her my sister, so I find it hard to introduce her formally, but welcome to Collective Rising Leadership Institute Celebration Summit for Cohort 3.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Oh, is it echoing? Is it too much volume from my side?
Could you please check?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you very well. Is the echo gone?
Okay. I'm feeling like I'm talking to myself, but I will continue because there was an echo before that. So, sort of before I get into the introductions, which I will do in a minute, I just want to make sure that the technicalities are okay. Joyce, am I driving the sharing of the presentation, right? Yes. So tell me what you see. Are you seeing my sharing of the?
Yes, we can see your PowerPoint.
Okay. Okay.
And maybe you can
No,
say
that's
something.
fine.
Maybe you can say something about yourself and Spiral Alloy. I did not say anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I just wanted to make sure that this was done.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Joyce. Incidentally, I've just returned from Cape Town from a beautiful leadership, what do I call it? Recollection of what we call the African Leadership Impact Forum. And in it is fellows from West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. And we hold this every 2 years. And it was just a fantastic gathering of minds and people from all sorts of walks of life. And it's by invitation. And it reminded me of the work that we still have to do on this continent and globally. And there was a lot of discussion around how we carry ourselves as leaders. And it came back to that discussion we love so much about. We are actually, in our minds and our bodies, the instruments of that leadership. So I'm hoping that in the next 2 hours, we'll explore a little bit of that. But just to sum what Joyce has said about me, I qualified in Australia as a medical doctor about close to 40 years ago. And I did the usual clinical practice, and I just was very uncomfortable with the fact that I didn't feel like I was making impact. And 15 years into the profession, I went and studied public health and leadership. And that's really just been my life since, and social justice. The rest of it is in there. But what I didn't also mention, which continuously surprises me, is how people are beginning to understand that wellness is actually leadership. And I think organizations are beginning to take it at the C-suite level, not sort of an HR matter anymore. And the rest of us are very happy about that, Joyce. And I spent a week with the other program I told you about, which is being a lifestyle coach, medical advisor on the Future Professors program that's run in South Africa as a leadership program for professors. And the entire being of this is, these are exceptionally bright minds, exceptionally bright. But maybe it is time that we remind ourselves and themselves and all professions across the globe that looking after yourself and looking after your mind and staying and making sure it stays sharp in your body is actually part of your leadership imperative. So that's a little bit of that. And I do work, of course, with workplace wellness. I have a little practice at home that I advise people on holistic wellness. And yeah, but thank you very much for inviting me. So we're going to make this very interactive. And hopefully I just wanted to mention that I grew up in Lesotho. Joyce, I don't know if I told you this. And the spiral aloe, which is the name of my company, is actually a national plant in Lesotho. And it only grows in a very small strip of the mountains, outside of which it dies completely. So I chose it as a symbol of the work I do because it epitomizes resilience. And every time I look at it and the lovely circles and the spirals that it is, it just warms my heart. So that's why the spiral aloe. What I'm hoping we will do is at the end of this 2 hours, I'm hoping at the very least that we'll understand what our lifestyles over and above genetics does to our performance, and get into the strategies both individually and collectively of how we can actually get it better and make it part of our culture at the workplaces where we work. And so that's what we will do. It's a lot of packed slides, Joyce, so some of them I won't really go into, but I'm hoping that people will have time at another time to have a look at them. So this is a slide I picked up actually recently, and for me, it talks to itself. The graphics, really, if you look at the evolution of men to how it is that they lived, 1,000 years back, and to the men sitting at the desk. I think we need not say anything further than that. And the little man at the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, the sedentary lives that have become part of our lifestyles and the damage that it has done to all of us. The statistics differ every time you look at them, but something about the sedentary lifestyle of sitting at a desk for 8 hours and an equivalent in damage of smoking a whole packet of cigarettes. That's how damaging the sedentary lifestyles have become. That was just an introduction into how damaging this is. I would like to pause a little bit here and ask anybody if they've had an opportunity to watch this series on Netflix. It's been around for a little while, 2023. The Blue Zones on Netflix. Anybody? Just by a show of hands. I also can't hear, so I'm just relying on...
Sorry, nobody has actually seen it, so maybe you tell us a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
so
one person has seen
the
it.
guy in the... Yeah, somebody has seen it, okay. But basically what the Blue Zones is 5 regions still around the world that Dan Butler, who you see in the photo here, was a National Geographic photographer. And moving around the world, they noticed a strange thing that in some villages and parts of the world where they were moving around, more than 60% of the population actually were more than 100 years old. I said more than 60%, which was just a phenomenon. So he went back and the team at National Geographic partnered with Oxford universities and went in and did a whole lot of research in finding out what it is about these people in this parts of the world that got them to live for so long. And living for so long, they were not lying in their beds doing nothing. They were sitting and drinking wine in the afternoons or whatever else it is they were doing. And the 5 regions studied, and it doesn't mean there are no other regions in the world, because they're now opening up the blue zones research, particularly on the African continent. We're all curious about the Maasai, for instance, and the Khoisan people in South Africa, and the Karoo, and all of those similar people where people really live long. The 5 areas studied are Costa Rica in South America, Japan, Italy, Greece, and the 5th one, to everybody else's surprise, is in the Middle America, the Seventh Adventist people. And it's entirely because of their lifestyle, through their beliefs, the way they live, no meat, vegetarian lifestyle, movement, spirituality, and all of that. And this research also came up with identifying 9, they call it the power of 9, and they identified the following things in this across the areas. And I'll start at the bottom of what I call the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A sense of belonging that these people had. They were a community. And underneath this sense of belonging is they prioritize family, but it's prioritizing family, but more than just family, it's healthy, joyful relationships. So we clarify that because sometimes families can be a sense of stress. The second thing in the belonging category is the connection with religion, a belief in something other than themselves. And then they create very active social networks. So they meet at places, they gather at places, and they support each other. The second rather on this pyramid is they eat wisely. And they drink a glass of red wine each day is particular to the Mediterraneans, but in Japan they drink their wine, their rice wine. In South America equally. It seems like something fermented in the drink has to do with the longevity that they find. It is not drinking separately, but it is drinking with food. Then they eat more veggies, less meat, and processed food. Of course, there's no processed food in these villages at all. And then the concept of eating until you are 80% full and not bloated is a Japanese concept that they also notice cuts across all of these regions. And then the third rather on the ladder is the right outlook in life, knowing your purpose. They truly believe in this strong sense of their being and how they show up in the world. Is a very strong thing. And then they work less, slow down, and take vacations. And we'll get into this a little bit. And I'm hoping that as we go through this radars, people are beginning to ask questions about how do we transfer these outlooks into our modern day life where we are working. And then the last one right at the top is this moving naturally. There are no lifts they take. They actually don't take cars. They just move around, go to church by walking, visit the neighbor, make daily physical activity an unavoidable part of your environment. So in summary, these are the 9 elements that they found that were common across this. And of course, as I said, they're looking into this. Singapore is a new area they're potentially going to be calling the 6th blue zone. So I'm going to pause here and ask people in your own personal lives, what is it that you're doing? And you can discuss it at your tables. What is it that you're doing that is similar to what it is you saw in the last PowerPoint? I just I'll just open up for discussion, maybe about 3 minutes, and then we'll come back for discussion. If we can pause and just discuss that. I'll therefore go back to the PowerPoint so that we are looking at it. 3 minutes. One more minute. Okay. Are people happy to share now what they discussed at their tables? Anybody? Let's just share.
Are we ready to share? Motto, they're asking for a few more minutes. Is that okay?
That is absolutely okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. I can see that this really generated a lot of discussion. I'm very curious to hear what this was all about. And we'll get back to it. But I'm really keen to hear what came up for people. I can just hear the animated discussions in the room. Anybody?
Yes, on our table we've had at least one practice or two or three from each of the members of this table. Starting on the first thing, move naturally. We have a member on our table who runs at least 30 kilometers per week. 30 kilometers
Sorry?
per week.
8. Okay.
30. It's not running from anything. It's just a part of physical exercises.
Okay.
As well, we have two members on the table on the right outlook. We have members who take vacations, work less at the point where they feel exhausted, and don't pick up calls during the weekends so as to create more time for relaxation. And
Okay.
eat wisely. We have members who take at least a glass of wine on a daily basis. And yes, but at that point also, it has been a challenge. Most of the members say that they cannot take meat out of their meals. Like any meal that they have, at least has to largely comprise of meat. And lastly, on the sense of belong, members of this table, they have social networks, mainly focusing on family development, family connections, prioritizing families, taking out kids on the weekend and take time with the kids on the weekends, as well as connecting with the religion. Thanks.
Thank you very much for this table. I'll come back to the comments. I think what we'll do, we'll go through all the tables and then hear what people said, and then we'll come back to the interrogation. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. At our table, I think we initially had a conversation at the level of our individual reactions to the slide and our own reflections on how well or we may be following some of these guidelines and where we might see some limitations. But I think by the end, the conversation shifted a little towards this question, especially as leaders from our various organizations, about how we are creating a culture within our organizations that promote this type of healthy lifestyle. And we explored maybe some of the examples. But certainly we saw, there are areas where we seem to be okay, but a lot of areas where we are maybe coming up short. And so there's a question of how the organizations can allow us to live this more balanced and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. Thank you for this table. What I'm going to do with this reflection, I'm going to park it because we are going to get into how organizations have examples of how organizations around the globe are doing this. So thank you very much for that. Thank you. the next table.
So maybe just for each of the parts, with the sense of belonging, it seems like for the most part, people prioritize family, and from the family they have these healthy, joyful relationships, and also from different networks based on like faith networks or churches and so forth. Outside of that, there was just like very few who have like other active social networks. With eating wisely, I think it's the same comment as others about meat being central to a daily diet. With the rightful outlook, it seems like everybody has like a strong sense of purpose and is trying to live their lives in a way that is aligned to that purpose. However, I think it was expressed by everyone that like working less, slowing down is out of question. Not very clear how that could happen. We also had a conversation very briefly. One person mentioned how within the organization we could see what it's like to establish a culture that allows people to reflect on what it is to slow down and to be more balanced. Moving naturally, not so much for everyone on the table.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any further tables in the room?
On our table, from the bottom,
Okay, here is the table.
it says, yes, please, sense of belonging. Here, the members agree they are all family members, and they do worship in various churches and religious groups, and they take some time with their families. And then eating wisely. Some members say they have a component of vegetables in their diet and so on. But of course, there are also members who maybe are not eating wisely. Like it has already been mentioned, there's some meat and so on in the diet. In the right outlook.
Just a pause. I'm just acknowledging Stella's hand so that when you finish, then Stella can come in. Is that okay, Stella?
Thank you so much.
All right, let's let the table finish and then you can come in.
The right outlook, most people are doing a lot of work. They are busy, but of course, some say maybe they get vacation, but not all within the group. There are those who work under pressure, and there's not much time that you get to have a rest and so on. Moving naturally. Yeah. Again here, we are all not together. There are those who do some practice. They practice to relax themselves. But again, there are those who, because of time, you want to move very fast to work and come back home early and so on. So again, you don't use your natural body to walk or whatever, do practice. So I think that is generally how our table has been.
Okay. This is very interesting. The commonalities and the threads I can see. Okay, is this table number 5 coming up? Stella, would you like to come in at this point before we...
Yes, there is another table here.
Get to table 5.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
My name is Stella Kihango Tumwebaze. I'm from Uganda, but right now I'm in Kenya attending another event. I'm part of cohort 2. Yes, moving naturally. I do walk. I walk 3 times a week. I work Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I work Saturday. Tuesday, I work from home to office, and Wednesday, I work from office home. And that is about 8 kilometers on each road. On Saturday, I have a walking team. We are the neighbors of 3 people, my husband and our neighbor. So we walk about 15 kilometers early in the morning. And it's really being nice. We chat, take hills and valleys, and it's doing very well. We also made it a practice and a culture at our office. Every Monday, before we do our meetings, we exercise, just stretching, and do belly breathing. And this belly breathing helps, takes oxygen into your brain, relaxes you. And we do it across because we have a head office, but also have district offices. So make sure that people open their cameras and show how they are taking that belly breathing. Right outlook, workless. That is still a challenge, but we know it, but it's a challenge because of deadlines, doing many things, have to combine your work and your social life. So I'm on that journey. I can say I've achieved a lot on that. Eating wisely, yes, I'm really very conscious about what I eat. I do vegetables. I take water, warm water, detoxing water. Wine daily, no, not yet. I'm not yet there. Belonging, yeah, this is my biggest as well. I belong to social networks. I'm a chairperson of 2 groups. I'm a treasurer of a group. So we meet, we save, we do social welfare, we help each other. Religion, yes. Yes, I belong to Roman Catholic Church. I love passing by church, by adoration, by Mother Mary Goroto. That one I'm really doing well and I'm proud about it. Prioritize family. Yeah, I'm not yet very there because of the work. But Saturday, Sunday, I cook for them. Especially Sunday, because at times Saturday I'm not around, but Sunday I cook. I cook and we serve and eat on the table. But of course, getting back home late in the evening after work, that one undermines my struggle to prioritize my family as I want.
Thank you so much, Joyce. I think you have said quite a mouthful, and I'd like to come back to some of the points you shared with us once I've had the last table 5, so we can just integrate and summarize what we have had. Thank you so much for your sharing.
And
so can I go back to, is it table 5?
Yes.
We will go back to the table, but I wanted to apologize that I forgot to say that this is the one initiative where we invited cohort 1 and cohort 2, so they are online. Okay. And that is why you are hearing Stella talking from cohort 2, and there's a few people from cohort 1 and 2. So let's hear the last group so that we can continue. Sorry about that. I just forgot
thank
to say
you.
that.
No, thank you, Joyce. It's absolutely fine.
All right. So here on our table, and moving naturally, we have people who have said that they give themselves at least 1 hour a day to exercise. Some people do it early in the morning before going to work, but some people do it 1 hour in the evening. Then under belonging, we have people who have said that they always check in with their neighbors. When they come back from work, they move around to ask them, how have you been? How has your day been? Under eating wisely, we have people on the table who have said that they cautiously watch their diet. Then under belonging still, we have people who have said that they have accountability partners for whatever they do, so that these people check out with them to follow up whether what they have committed themselves to, they are actually doing it. Then still under belonging, we have someone in the table who has said that he's almost losing his job because his boss has failed to understand the fact that he needs to prioritize the family before even reporting for work. That she has been reporting very late for work, and even after work, she reports earlier so that she comes and pay attention to the family. So that is what is happening in our group as far as this hierarchy of needs are concerned.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. So what I would like to do in terms of summing up what I've heard, I think everybody understood, and I think you could see the thread. So very quickly to further share how difficult this work has been. Everywhere I've been, it is really a struggle because we're dealing with behavioral change. We're dealing with closing the gap at an individual level between, we know that we should eat well, we know that we should move, we know that we should have positive family connections. But how big is that gap for each one of us from the knowing and then the doing? And then when you get to the doing, the next difficulty is how do you incorporate this as a ritual, as a practice that you do every day? And you've heard that some people actually are getting there. So I'd just like to add further how other people are doing this, from really just presenting the power of 9 in different settings that one goes through. The one around organizational difficulty and the sort of the job versus family difficulty we'll get into towards the end of this presentation. The moving naturally, there's a movement, if I would call it that actually gym membership is expensive. We all work 23 hours. We don't have time to do this. So there's a beginning to encourage what we call movement integration. What does this mean? Even at work, we've now been sitting close to an hour. Is on the hour every hour. Stand up and just move around for about 10 minutes and come back to the desk. It's an increasing movement because of the realization that if you're a mom or a dad and you have a pickup run in the afternoon, and then you have to get back home, and then you have to cook, and then you have to do your work, you have to start thinking about movement in the manner in which it becomes a fabric of your daily life, as opposed to yet another 2 hours out of your already overpacked schedule and go into the gym. So in the home environment, movement integration might be just moving things around, actually moving furniture, cleaning, and just like the way we grew up. And it is to try to solve for this problem of where do I get another hour to exercise? Integrate the movement into your daily lives. In the workplace, find strategies of this micro strategies of how you integrate movement at the workplace. In the home, find strategies on how you integrate movement into your home life as well. So that's the moving naturally thing. The right outlook to life, I'd just like to emphasize that when we really unpack this is people say they go to church, people say they go to, and then somebody said in one meeting, actually, I get a lot of stress from the church subcommittees I belong to. So it's not so much the going to those communities. We emphasize, are these relationships and community membership you belong to healthy for you? That's the question we need to be asking. Is that all a healthy practice to be? So that is just one thing I wanted to talk about. When you say you have a community, is it beneficial to you? Is it a good one for you? Now let's talk about nyama chomas and all of those things, because I think the sharing of red meat is not to say all of us become vegetarians or pescatarians, whatever area we join. It is just being mindful of how much it is we eat of the red meat. Is it once a week? Is it once every 2 weeks? Is it twice a week? How much of it is that? And I think it is just a discussion around being mindful about what it is that we put on our plate. It's not asking people to become culturally what it is that they're not used to. It's raising awareness around what it is that we put on our plate. So I think that's how I understand that. Alcohol. There are a lot of people that don't drink. And it's not to say that suddenly you have to include fermented drinks in that way into your diet if that hasn't been part of it. But even in those communities that drink, it's part of the jubilation and the celebration, and it's part of food. It's not the sitting down that we do with liters of whiskey and whatever else we drink to make ourselves feel numb and drinking it separately. This whole thing is about just raising awareness about how all these different elements can be done. And finally, I think Singapore, I shared, is beginning to be explored very deeply as potentially the next blue zone. What has happened in Singapore is totally amazing because the government of Singapore has taken this as a national strategy. And what they've done is they're incentivizing young people to live with their grandparents. So they're doing housing units where they actually incentivize young people to as opposed to putting them in isolation in what do you call them, retirement homes, and that it comes with certain benefits. So it's beginning to incorporate into the modern lifestyle ways that we can actually recreate those communities that we grew up knowing. So I'll pause here and just find out if there are any burning questions around how we can do this practically in our very high-paced life, promising that actually the next section we're going to get into how organizations have responded. Any comments before we move? Okay.
Question.
Was there a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
At the table, we're wondering how you know you're 80% full.
I think it is a concept rather than an exact measure. And the way the Japanese describe it is really just eating until you are just right. And to be fair, I think it's not 80%, it's not 90%, it's not 77%. It's a philosophy of not eating until you're really uncomfortable. I think for me, that's a philosophy. It's about just eat enough to just deal with that sense of hunger. And when you feel you're full, don't go over it. So for me, it's not the 80% as such. It is the philosophy behind that, what that means in real life. I don't know if that answers you, right? Okay. If there are no other further questions, we'll move on to the next section. And if Joyce, it is okay, we will then break for about 5 minutes on the half hour so that we can stretch our knees. All right?
Yes, sounds great.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to project this as we promise that we'll look also at strategies on how to build this. So there are different institutions that are trying to really incorporate this, but make it as simple as possible for people to try to do this almost as a little card that you can keep in your handbag, your purse, to remind yourself what it is you do. So Dr. Onish is one of my favorite guys. He sits out at UCLA, and for the last 15 years has done research on the impact of lifestyle changes in longevity. But he has now put this together into 4 elements of your life, which I like because then you can sort of put them in the 4 baskets. And I'm only doing this for people, if you like, it's 4 elements and you can do this for yourselves to say, how am I doing, on a scale of 1 to 10? So the first thing is nutrition, and he talks to the 80% feeling full, what it is you eat, vegetables. And he says when you eat in a healthy way, you lose weight and gain health. That basically is something that you understand. So that is the first component he puts into. The second component is fitness, which equates to moving and your physical health and looking at your physical health. And he gets into a whole program that he has done programs around all of this to actually get very granular about what it is he means by fitness. And the concepts of movement integration have come from some of the work that he has done to say, it is not about going to the gym. It's not about taking this. It's about building movement into your everyday lives. And the weekend hikes and the walks that people do are fantastic, belonging to park runs and all of that is a great way to sort of keep up the motivation. Getting, as somebody said, I think it was Stella, accountability partners is a great thing. And really, just so that I don't forget Stella's input, get a partner if you want to do this and get to it. Get somebody who can hold you accountable. It is very difficult to get into a rhythm of this thing. I'll get to stress management, which is a huge thing that we'll get into the next hour, and we talk about burnout. This basket for me has become increasingly important because this is where the tension between what as an individual it is you're trying to do to manage stress and the overload of life, and how your organization that you work for meets you halfway, and how you really build resilient strategies around how you respond. And this is the area of emotional intelligence as leaders. This is how you manage emotions, not only at the home, but at the workplace. So it's a huge basket of how we manage stress. And the final basket on the 4 is the group support. And he talks, loneliness is the next epidemic. We are becoming very lonely, even as we live with people. The relationships that we have with people and the connections are not as healthy as they should be. So he has brought back into the interventions what he calls group support. And as I said, you can define it in whatever way you want to define it, but at the heart of it, any group you belong to must not cause you stress. It must be a holding crucible of love and support that actually adds to your well-being. So this is Dr. Onish's model, and this PowerPoint, Joyce, is available for people to share, to look at later on for themselves, to just rate themselves on this, right? This is just another graphic to talk to the 4 baskets of Dr. Onish's strategy, stress management. And here he goes a little bit into actually, how do you actualize this? Sorry, my finger's a little bit touchy this morning. And he becomes very specific about the baskets, as you can see. The first one being, let's start with stress management just to complete this discussion. He already talks about how do you do this actually. Breathe. Watch your focus, laugh often, turn on some tunes. There's a whole list that even people in the room can actually share how they stress less. If we had more time, people will share. And it's amazing how every time you do this, you find new ways of how people actually de-stress, playing music and all of that. So your physical body, as I said, walk more, move your body every day, high intensity, interval training, strength, especially for us who have sort of reached that golden age of menopause. And then you move across to nutrition strategies, eating right, eat the rainbow. We know that in South Africa we had a joke about 7 colors. So eat everything, but as colorful as it is. And chicken is not a vegetable, as I've heard, because people who love meat like me will argue that, green things on their plate is not part of their diet. The Hari Hachbu is that 80% philosophy, really. And it's not the number that's important, it's the philosophy behind it. So all of this, and the final one, which is more your spiritual connection, your higher purpose, about starting with giving the day to God, if that is what, which is what grounds you in the morning, and we all ground ourselves in different ways. Do what it is that you love, work that you love. It's not always possible, but to the extent you can, try to measure and align your work to what it is that really inspires you. So that's the summary of this. I'm going to move on to this as a summary of this first section about the approach is always holistic. When you look about health and longevity and leadership, for me, it's not just becoming a supreme athlete at the cost of everything else around. How are your relationships? How are you showing up in the world for the people that are around you? How are you showing up in the world for the people that you lead? It's not that you are supreme body. So for me, I always caution, we do it this way to remind people and leaders that in whatever way you embark on this journey of health and wellness and leadership, always remember it's multifaceted, and it is about looking at this holistically. This last slide I'm not going to do because we are 4 minutes from our rest and getting into the next section. I'm only going to share them so that people can use them. This is a bigger circle, but of Dr. Onish, which he has collapsed and looked at it. And the next section is, I use this when we do a more interactive exercise on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you think you are dealing with all these different aspects? The 8 dimensions, which is huge, really. I prefer the 4 because I think it's more practical. And then you ask yourself, what were your last 3 lowest ratings? Because, if you're doing 7 out of 8, you're already there. And then you have to look at, how can I support myself to do better? This is where your accountability partners or regularity and making this into routine come in. And what is it that I can do more or less to support these new habits that I'm trying to? The most important thing, because that's what we're going to get into when we discuss burnout in the next hour, is how can I ask for support? As leaders, I think we're very, very poor in asking for support. So you are quite welcome to look at this and share it for yourself, and use this wheel, as I call it. We print it out when we go into organizations and we get people to actually get into it. But for me, because as Joyce has said in the beginning, I'm a medical doctor, and I think my discomfort started looking at this holistic eye that I use to look at things. And I want to read this as a last presentation, that medicine today tends to focus primarily on the physical and the mechanistic way of bodies, which is how we are taught. Drugs, surgery, genes, germs, microbes, and molecules. However, there isn't any other factor in medicine, not diet, not smoking, not exercise, not stress, genetics, drugs, surgery, that has the greatest impact on our quality of life, incidence of illness and premature death from all causes, than loneliness and isolation. So I'll pause here for this hour. I don't know if there are any reflections. Joyce?
Yes, so your 5 minutes break?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I was just wanting some reflections on this first part, and then a 5-minute break, and then we come back because we're going to get into burnout and sleep.
Some reflections, yeah. Nothing.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Phoebe?
Yes.
Okay, is it? Okay, right.
Yeah, sorry. I tried to look for where I can raise my hand and I failed.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm taking you back to the I'm sorry, to the blue zone.
Blue zones?
The
Yeah.
blue zone. Yes. Yeah. So that is like very, very important, especially as we work with CBOs, and do the work that we do. It's very, very important. So you mentioned about how Singapore is advocating for the well-being of children and proposing that they go back to their grandmothers or maybe grandparents, I can say.
Yeah, yeah.
But now, since we are working and we are adults and we cannot go back there, and we spend more time at our workplaces than elsewhere, like so many hours. You see someone who come to work at maybe 7 in the morning, and sometimes they extend as far as 10 or even more than that, so like we spend more time at our workplaces than elsewhere. And so I'm thinking when we talk about belonging, eating wisely, right outlook, moving naturally at our workplaces, that is a very big deal for us. And that is where the rubber meets the road. Like, how do we practically make this possible?
Yeah.
And so, like, because we spend a lot of time at workplaces, there are kind of like some things I would suggest for us to, to work towards as persons working with organizations and the workload that we have, and there's so much that happens, because we can create a sense of belonging at the workplace if we nurture healthy relationships at workplaces, because some people can be so stressed and overwhelmed by the environment when it is not welcoming, when they don't feel in place, and they feel maybe they are discriminated because of this or that happens. But when we nurture the healthy relationships at work, they kind of like help us to get a sense of belonging. We can even create time for devotionals, you know, daily. I've worked with different organizations, mostly Christian, and it is a way of life. You always have devotionals, and everything stops at the time of devotion. So we can also do this. We can consider employees' family time. Like for instance, if someone told you, "I have a sick child," or "My wife is sick," or "This is happening at home," I think we can just be considerate and maybe allow them the time to go off and attend to their family member. And also this encourages them. It helps them feel um, uh, that they belong, because they know that you really care for them, and you know, you understand their situation. That eating wisely, sometimes I would think maybe because most of the employees have more meals at work than elsewhere, because you know, they will come in the morning, that is breakfast, lunch, and sometimes maybe evening time or maybe dinner time finds them there. Like I would suggest maybe, like, if an organization cannot provide the meals, you know, like provide the meals, they can maybe cut off a portion of their salary, of the salary or something. I don't know, they can do something, you know. You can just talk with the employees and like, hey, we can do this about this, and then you make sure that they have the very right food that they are supposed to have. Because now if it is not controlled and you think their health does not matter to you, or maybe their eating habits doesn't matter, like it does really matter, because when they're not healthy, it means you know, they're not going to be able to
Thanks,
function.
Phoebe.
So,
Yeah. Basically, Phoebe, you're beginning to write the blueprint on what organizations can do.
yeah.
And I would encourage you to take that and share it with the network, because I think some of these things are doable. And
Yeah.
the next section that we're going to get into is start to understand how other organizations have done this. I've spent 80% of my life working for NGOs. I think it's a privilege to work for NGOs because you're closest to people. And I think it's probably easier there than in corporates to do some of these interventions to support people. I think so. It's a true belief of mine. I see that Cebu, Jane, is your hand up, or do you want
Yes.
to bring your question in the next session? Okay, your hand is up.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. I think my excitement I think, crowned it all at the last slide, where you talked about that there is no other incident that increases our exposure to illness and premature death than more than loneliness and isolation. I think that is a great takeaway for us from this session, and yet it is a low-hanging fruit whereby connection, networks, home and belonging is very close to us for us to get to a healthy life. Thank you very much on that.
Thanks, Jane. We'll get into it. We have the privilege of knowing, and I think the challenge as leaders we have is how do we actually take this knowing into practice so that we can benefit those that are closest to us. I really think let's break for 5 minutes. Let's go drink our water, and then we'll come back to deal with burnout. Thank you.
Only 5 minutes, please. You can stand up or we can do a dance. Please do not take